Marissa, thanks. Soft on crime is not a label most judges want to wear, but some Clark County judges are being accused of allowing too much so-called catch and release in criminal cases.
New this morning, Chief Investigator Darcy Spears shows get out of jail free cards are being handed out as the legal system struggles to strike a balance between a defendant's rights and public safety.
The homeless man accused of murdering Ciro Vasquez Jr. outside his family's taco shop on October 25th is described by Metro as a continual problem in the area around Thunderbird Plaza.
I mean, I was looking at the history, and just let alone this year, he was arrested on 4 different occasions, all within a few months of each other.
Jennifer Mora is still trying to make sense of her brother's senseless death.
Unfortunately, we feel like the system failed. They failed him, they failed us, our family, my brother.
A bitter pill to swallow.
Especially because, my brother was infantry, so he literally signed his life away to protect the United States of America, and to come back and be killed by a homeless man that he fed on a regular basis.
29-year-old Angel Martinez has a rap sheet of 11 criminal cases, including possession of drug paraphernalia, resisting arrest, trespassing, and multiple charges of domestic battery.
He was known to be a violent person, so he shouldn't have been on the street.
In Martinez's case, either the charges were dismissed or he was released again and again on his own recognizance, or OR, without having to post bail.
It's like if, they were just waiting for something tragic to happen to be like, oh, okay, let's keep him in jail.
Chuck Muth of the nonprofit public policy group Citizen Outreach.
If you just keep releasing people in their own recognizance and there's no penalty to not show up or not to reoffend, they're just going to continue to do it. I mean, a lot of them are, in fact, just criminal.
When he allegedly stabbed Ciro Vasquez Jr., Angel Martinez was out of jail on an automatic OR release in a pending misdemeanor case.
Criminal justice reform and bail reform is necessary, but it cannot come at the cost of public safety.
We spoke to Metro Assistant Sheriff Chris Jones earlier this year about a similar scenario.
Does someone have to kill another person before they get kept in jail? Because when you look at a case like that, I think a lot of people feel like that's the direction it's heading.
Right, and that's an example of what frustrates law enforcement.
But even if you do allegedly kill someone, you may get out of jail free. Take the current case of George Kahalua Doctorello, known as Kioki. Police records say in May 2019, he punched a man who fell to the ground, hit his head, and lost consciousness. That happened here outside the Badlands Saloon on East Sahara. Police records say Kioki did not call 911 or help the victim, who had a significant head fracture and brain bleed from hitting the cement. Those conditions were not initially treated at the hospital because the paramedics were not informed of the altercation. The victim was in the hospital for 8 days before suffering a seizure and dying. Kahalua Doctorello was arrested and charged with open murder, but on September 24th, 2020, Judge Diana Sullivan released him on his own recognizance.
And you're getting just a quick snapshot of somebody standing in front of the judge. Judge has to make a quick determination, and so is any system going to be perfect? Of course not.
In this case, Judge Sullivan had a second chance when Kahalua Doctorello failed to show up for intensive supervision as she had previously ordered. He was arrested again October 5th, but on October 12th, Judge Sullivan again released him on OR.
Maybe he should have gotten the benefit of the doubt the first time, but after the second time, no. There's no reason in the world why he should have been back out on the street.
We asked Judge Sullivan why she let him out on OR again, but she said she couldn't discuss a pending case. Court records show he's indigent and is being represented on the taxpayer's dime by the Clark County Public Defender's Office.
We shouldn't put a price tag on whether or not a person is allowed to be out of custody or not.
Public Defender Darren Imlay says the cash bail system criminalizes poverty and furthers inequality in the justice system.
My ability to post $5,000 bail or $10,000 bail doesn't ensure the safety of the community whatsoever.
But generally speaking, I think a person charged with murder, unless there are exceptional circumstances, should be in custody.
District Attorney Steve Wolfson thinks the system gets it right most of the time.
But not always. So it's a question of what percentage of people that reoffend, or what percentage of people that fail to appear is acceptable or not.
In calendar year 2019, 37% of Clark County's defendants who were rated high risk failed to appear for their next court date. That's 1 out of 3.
It is too high. It's too high. And 18% of the people who were rated as a high risk committed a new offense. So 1 out of 5 people.
We've been tracking the people we first reported on in March. Most have been rearrested and charged with new crimes while out on OR. One is Eduardo Zepeda. He was released on OR with medium-level electronic monitoring after a June 2019 arrest for felony child abuse neglect. He had an extensive criminal history, including DUI, failure to appear twice before, burglary, and grand larceny. While awaiting trial, police records show he was arrested again on October 24th for driving drunk with a child in the car, crashing into a pole on Lake Mead near MLK and trying to leave the scene. He was charged with DUI, child endangerment, and violating probation, but again, released on OR after the state asked for more time to file a criminal complaint.
It's very frustrating, not only because a lot of work has gone into that, but more so because that individual has proven time and again that they are going to completely disregard the laws that deal with public safety.
Carlos Real was released on his own recognizance after an arrest in January for battery domestic violence. He was arrested for the same thing 12 days later and then released for free again. Then, in March, Judge Joe Bonaventure granted Real another OR release on more domestic battery charges. A bench warrant had to be issued on May 27th after Real failed to appear in court.
Is there a threshold at some point? Do you say, you know what, you can't go back out anymore?
Absolutely. If somebody is a danger to the community, if they're continuing to reoffend, then that should affect their liberty.
Judge Joe Bonaventure runs Clark County's initial appearance court. We spoke to him for our original investigation in March.
Freedom before conviction is the norm in our society, and pretrial detention is the careful exception. So that's how it should be.
In a recent decision, the Nevada Supreme Court didn't abolish bail, but did say that in order for bail to be set, the state has to prove it's necessary in order to make sure a defendant shows up for future court proceedings or to protect public and victim safety. If bail is set, the judge has to take into account the defendant's financial resources and must state the reason for the bail amount on the record. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates.